What's up, everyone? We're here today in Wilson, North Carolina, gonna build an 8x10 shed. So I'll go ahead and get to explaining what we're doing. Right now we're leveling. So we got the layout at every 2 feet. These are 8-foot joists since it's an 8x10, and these are the two 10-footers. As you can see, they're putting center blocks on every corner, and they're leveling accordingly. So these 8-foot joists, in order for them to be true 8 feet, we have to take off this 1.5 inches of the band. So we take off 1.5 inches from 8 feet, and then another 1.5 inches, which is this band. So that would make a true 8 feet after we subtract those 3 inches, 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. The 10-footers, they stay exactly 10 feet. But you always want to measure, because sometimes, most of the time, this greenwood is never exact. It's probably 10 foot and a couple inches. So right now we're leveling. As you can see, you can tell it's leveled when you see that dot right there is in the center. It can be off a 16, that's okay. Now what we're doing here, we're gonna double check the square. Basically, we get a measuring tape on both sides. And it's 153 and a half. How much you got?
3/4.
So it just needs to go that this way. Kick it over here, just an 8. A little more. That's 153 and 5/8.
Yeah.
All right, we're both the same. That's square. Now we're ready to put some 3/4 plywood. If it was a bigger shed, we'll fill it in. Since we already got all these extra blocks, we're gonna go ahead and fill it in, even though it's not necessary. And we'll keep going from there. So here we just finished nailing the 3/4 plywood. I'm sorry I forgot to record. Too busy working. So basically these plywoods are coming 8 feet. We just nailed at every joist at 2 feet, of course. Usually you want to stagger it, 8 feet and then 4 feet and then 8 feet and 4 feet. But when it's a shed this long, it don't really matter. And we got the rib piece right there. Here we go again, guys. This is your bottom plate, your top plate. You want to mark 3.5 all the way around and chalk line it around the whole perimeter. Why? Because your plates are 3.5 when you stand them. So in order for us to build these walls correctly, we have to nail it on that chalk line mark. Just 3 nails, they're temporary nails. That way when we lift up the wall off of the ground, those 3.5 will lay perfectly flush with the outside. Hang with me, guys. If you don't know nothing about construction, you'll start to know in a minute. People who know about construction, you know what I'm saying. So the layout, we're doing that at every 2 feet, which is perfectly fine. You can do it at 16 inches, at 19.25, or every 2 feet. So as you see, we got our layout at every 2 feet mark, top and bottom plate, 2 nails on every stud. Again, guys, we put the bottom plate, the top plate, the 2 wall plates, and then the top plate. In construction, it's all about squaring and leveling. So now we're squaring the wall. Make sure they both have the same exact measurement to the corner. So when they have it perfectly squared, when they both have, say, 105 inches on each tape, on each measuring tape on the corners, we're gonna go ahead and tack that top plate to the ground. Okay, guys, so here we're just nailing the smart siding at least every 8 inches, bottom and in the center where the studs meet at every 2 feet. We're making sure that gap is open. When we picked up this wall, it lines up flush with that 3.5 chalk line. Everything's flush to the joist band, and the siding overlaps it. And that's how it's supposed to be. We add 1 brace with 1 nail. Doesn't need any more than that. Another thing, we always slide off at least a foot, put it to the line, nail it, square it, and then when we pick it up, we'll slide it back to this, because if we would do it tight right there, we wouldn't have the 3.5-inch space to put the siding. Again, we square, tack, siding. You see we have that 3-inch overhang, so when we pick up the wall, we'll slide it tight, plate to plate, and that siding will overlap this stud, and we'll nail it on that side. Then you have a perfect corner. So since it's a 10-foot wall, we'll have 2 feet on the last panel, but you gotta remember, we need a 3.5-inch overhang. So we'll measure from this 3.5 inches. And it could be 3 inches, 3 1/4. You don't want to go over 3.5 because it'll mess you up in the future. Because these corners will be covered with trim. So I'm gonna measure 3 1/4 to this notch. We'll cut. You don't even have to use a chalk line. We know 3/4 is right here. So we have the wall tight against this wall. As you can see, that siding will overlap the stud, just like this siding will overlap this wall. And we'll have something to nail onto. As you can see, this corner, the siding overlap the stud I was telling you guys about. So we just nail siding nails along this whole stud. But like I said, if you cut this less than 3.5, you could cut it even 2 inches. Really, it doesn't matter if the stud shows, really, because you're gonna put trim over it and cover that. So this is going to be the front wall. There's going to be a true 8 feet. Measure your layout, 2 feet, 2 feet. We're going to put a big 4-foot door on the front. So this is the center. Measure 2 feet this way, 2 feet that way. We mark the jack, 1.5 inches. Jack, 1.5 inches, and then another stud on this side. So the circle just stands for jacks. We know it's going to hold the header. And the X is just a normal stud. So we won't nail the center since it's gonna be a door. Right here, guys, all we're doing is putting the panels, and then we're cutting out this inside for the door. So normally you would cut it flush to this stud, right? But we go 1.5 inches more. We measure it to where it hits here, and then we add 1.5 inches more and 1.5 inches more on the top. That way it works as a door stop when we put the door, and you'll see why later on. So as you can see, now we have 1.5 inches all the way around for the door stop. Instead of, as you can see, everything is really pre-calculated, everything we do. We're gonna put a pitch 8. So in order to do that, where they can see the square. In order to do that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and cut where it sits on the wall plate. So as you can see right here on the common, those are your pitches of your roof. We're just gonna go straight to an 8. Make sure your 8 is right there on the edge of this wood. And then we're just gonna mark it right here. And then from there, we're gonna mark a 1/2 inch. As you can see, if you leave your square in place, you have 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1/4, 1.5 inches. So we're just gonna mark a 1/2 inch right there. Then you just flip your square, line it up with your angle right here. And at this mark, you just mark it. And that's gonna sit on the wall stud. You know, you could always lower it down until it has 4 inches right here, 3.5 inches, whatever your top plate is. But it really doesn't matter if it passes your top plate. Guys, so you can see I nailed that where it sits on the plate. I nailed it flush to the wall, flush right there. Now it's holding itself up. So we just put the level right here at the 4 feet mark. We just go ahead and level it. When it's level, just mark it right there. So now we have our ridge mark. Now we want to check that and make sure it's also an 8 on the common. Right there, it's an 8, perfect. You see that? Get close up. It's on the, come, vente por aquí. You see the 8 right there, so everything's good. So now we have our pattern. With this, we're gonna cut all of our rafter. So we're just gonna take this off. We're gonna copy about 12 of them.